20 controversial black artists that suddenly disappeared after one hit. Ever wondered what happened to those black artists who dropped a massive hit, took over the charts, and then vanished without a trace? Some sparked dance crazes, others topped Billboard, but just as quickly as they rose, they disappeared from the spotlight. In this video, we're diving into the stories behind 20 unforgettable one-hit wonders, the triumphs, the controversies, and the abrupt fade-outs. Stick around as we uncover the truth behind the legends who came and went like lightning. Cisco. At the dawn of the new millennium, Cisco burst onto the scene like a comet in silver hair and dragon-themed theatrics. His 1999 solo breakout, Unleash the Dragon, brought with it Thong Song, a pop R&B sensation that was cheeky, outrageous, and impossible to ignore. The song didn't just top charts, it hijacked MTV, ignited dance floors, and somehow made thongs a national conversation. For a minute, Cisco wasn't just a singer, he was a cultural event. But that spark was tough to sustain. Despite Unleash the Dragon going multi-platinum and turning him into a household name, the follow-up album Return of the Dragon, 2001, lacked the same bite. Fans showed up expecting another bombastic, genre-bending anthem, but instead were met with lukewarm singles and diminishing energy. The era of flamboyant R&B was shifting, and Cisco's highly stylized image started feeling like a gimmick rather than a blueprint. He later rejoined his group, Dru Hill, and dabbled in reality TV and small solo projects, but the solo spotlight never fully returned. Meanwhile, critics began to frame his career as a case study in how quickly a viral moment can cannibalize long-term artistry. Yet Cisco's legacy isn't just defined by decline. He was one of the first R&B artists to bridge theatrical pop with hip-hop swagger. And though Thong Song may have boxed him into novelty territory, it also carved out a lane for future acts unafraid of absurdity and spectacle. B.O.B. In 2010, B.O.B. arrived like a genre-bending breath of fresh air. His debut album, B.O.B. Presents: The Adventures of Bobby Ray, was a polished mix of pop, rap, and rock, propelled by the Bruno Mars-assisted single, Nothin' on You. The track shot to #1, earning B.O.B. mainstream attention and crossover appeal. Follow-ups like Airplanes, featuring Paramore's Hayley Williams, and Magic with Weezer's Rivers Cuomo showcased his ability to blend introspective lyrics with stadium-ready hooks. He wasn't just another rapper, he was marketed as a boundary-pushing artist. But that image started to crack by his second album, Strange Clouds. While it featured major names like Taylor Swift, critics began to notice a shift, more features, less originality. Then came the real twist. In 2016, B.O.B. publicly declared his belief that the Earth was flat. The backlash was swift and merciless. His bizarre feud with astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson made headlines, but not in ways that supported his music. His scientific skepticism, combined with increasingly erratic interviews and conspiracy-laced lyrics, turned him from innovator to internet spectacle. Though B.O.B. continued to release music independently, his commercial momentum had evaporated. Once a Grammy-nominated artist with mainstream backing, he became a cautionary tale about how quickly an image, and a career, can derail when controversy overtakes craft. Today, his debut remains a standout in 2010's pop rap history, even as the man behind it drifts further into the fringes of cultural memory. Lauryn Hill. Few artists have experienced the meteoric rise, and mystifying retreat, that defined Lauryn Hill's career. As a member of the Fugees, she had already made waves with The Score, a critically acclaimed hip-hop classic. But it was her 1998 solo debut, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, that cemented her status as a visionary. The album was an artistic revelation, fusing soul, reggae, gospel, and rap with deeply personal storytelling. It won 5 Grammy Awards, including Album of the Year, making her the first woman to be nominated in 10 categories in one night. Then, almost without warning, she disappeared. Rather than bask in the spotlight, Hill retreated from public life, citing spiritual exhaustion and a need for personal reflection. Her 2002 MTV Unplugged No. 2.0 performance revealed a different Lauryn, stripped down, raw, and riddled with cryptic monologues. While some praised its honesty, others were left confused by the drastic shift. Over the years, Hill's reputation became entangled with reports of erratic behavior, late or cancelled performances, and tax issues. Yet despite the unpredictability, she never lost her devoted following. Her voice, her lyrical depth, and her fearlessness to walk away from fame on her own terms remain a source of fascination and admiration. Lauryn Hill didn't fade due to failure, she stepped off the stage in the midst of success. Her story isn't one of collapse, but of artistic withdrawal, and miseducation continues to influence a generation raised on both its sound and its silence. Hootie and the Blowfish. When Cracked Rear View dropped in 1994, Hootie and the Blowfish became an unlikely juggernaut. Led by Darius Rucker's warm, soulful baritone, the album was a mix of rock, pop, and earnest storytelling that resonated across generations. Singles like Only Wanna Be With You and Let Her Cry dominated radio, and the album went on to sell over 20 million copies in the US alone, a staggering feat for a debut. The band's authenticity and lack of pretense gave them mass appeal in an era increasingly defined by grunge and angst. But immense success can become a heavy shadow. Their follow-up album, Fairweather Johnson, debuted at number 1 but failed to match the impact of its predecessor. Critics began to call the band formulaic, and as music trends leaned toward edgier, more experimental acts, Hootie's clean-cut style began to feel dated. Radio support waned, and the band quietly slipped out of the spotlight. In the 2000s, the group took a hiatus, and Rucker successfully reinvented himself as a country music artist, a rare crossover that earned him multiple #1 hits and awards in a completely different genre. The band reunited occasionally, but the momentum of their 90s peak was never recaptured. Hootie and the Blowfish didn't implode, they simply faded with grace. Their debut remains one of the best-selling albums of all time, and for many, their music represents a comforting snapshot of a simpler musical era. Gnarls Barkley. Gnarls Barkley didn't sound like anything else in 2006, and that's exactly what made them explode. A collaboration between producer Danger Mouse and vocalist CeeLo Green, the duo introduced themselves with Saint Elsewhere and the smash single, Crazy, a haunting, genre-defying track that became an instant classic. Its eerie falsetto, vintage soul influence, and polished experimentation pushed boundaries and redefined what pop soul could be. Crazy became the first song in UK chart history to reach #1 on downloads alone, signaling a seismic shift in how music would be consumed. Critics adored the album for its originality, and fans latched on to the duo's refusal to conform. The music wasn't just catchy, it was conceptual, even cinematic. But lightning, as they say, rarely strikes twice. Their 2008 follow-up, The Odd Couple, offered glimpses of brilliance, but it was weighed down by expectations and comparisons to their own breakout. Instead of forcing the project to continue, both artists pivoted back to solo careers. CeeLo focused on his solo ventures and TV appearances, while Danger Mouse remained behind the boards, producing for other top-tier acts. Gnarls Barkley never officially disbanded, but the project quietly slipped into dormancy. Rather than overstay their welcome, Gnarls Barkley left on their own terms. Their brief run proved that mainstream success doesn't have to sacrifice creativity. Though short-lived, their presence left a permanent mark on 2000s music, a fleeting, fearless experiment that worked beyond anyone's expectations. Chantel. Chantel emerged from Barbados during a time when the world was fixated on her island counterpart, Rihanna. But rather than mimic, she carved a more soulful, emotional path. Her 2008 debut album Chantelligence introduced her as a heartfelt voice in the R&B pop scene. Tracks like T-Shirt offered breezy, relatable vulnerability, but it was 2010's Impossible that truly captured global attention. The ballad climbed into the Billboard Hot 100's top 20, praised for its aching delivery and universal theme of heartbreak. Her success seemed poised for escalation, especially with the momentum of Stuck With Each Other, featured on the Confessions of a Shopaholic soundtrack. Chantel had the voice, the look, and the backing of major labels. But her second album, No Gravity, struggled to make waves. Despite strong vocals and polished production, it lacked a standout hit, and promotional efforts fell flat. Then came the long silence. Whispers of a third album floated for years, but updates were scarce. Whether due to label complications, creative burnout, or the immense shadow cast by Rihanna's dominance, Chantel quietly slipped from public view. She didn't leave with controversy or spectacle, just absence. While she occasionally teases appearances or small performances, her major label momentum never returned. For fans, Impossible remains a go-to anthem of heartbreak, a song that felt like it could have been the beginning of a legacy. Instead, it became the defining chapter of a career full of promise, paused indefinitely. The Game. In 2005, The Game exploded out of Compton with the documentary, a debut that re-energized West Coast hip-hop. Backed by Dr. Dre's production and 50 Cent's star power, he delivered raw, aggressive verses layered with street history and personal trauma. Tracks like Hate It or Love It and How We Do dominated airwaves and clubs alike. More than just a rapper, The Game positioned himself as a bridge between generations, a torchbearer for West Coast rap in the post-Tupac, post-Dre spotlight era. But success brought friction. His fallout with 50 Cent and G-Unit became one of hip-hop's most infamous public beefs, casting a shadow over his rising star. Though he continued to release albums, Doctor's Advocate, LAX, and beyond, each met with critical interest but diminishing mainstream pull. As his discography grew, so did the controversies. Feuds with other rappers, bold proclamations of being top 5 all-time, and legal battles began to overshadow his music. Despite these distractions, The Game never fully disappeared. He maintained a loyal fan base and kept producing solid projects, yet the raw hunger and mass appeal that marked his debut became harder to replicate. His antagonistic persona, once a marketing edge, started to feel like baggage. For all his talent, The Game's career is a study in conflict, with others, with the industry, and possibly with himself. The documentary remains his crown jewel, a moment when everything aligned. What followed was a slower, messier saga that never quite reached that peak again. Willow Smith. Willow Smith entered the spotlight with more than just famous parents. She had a hit. At only 10 years old, Whip My Hair became a cultural lightning bolt in 2010. The song was playful, empowering, and infectious, turning Willow into a viral pop sensation overnight. For a moment, she seemed poised to follow in the footsteps of teen megastars like Rihanna and Beyoncé, especially with Jay-Z backing her under Rock Nation. But fame at that age isn't easy to navigate, and Willow pulled the brakes almost as quickly as she launched. She stepped away from the spotlight, shelving a full-length pop album and expressing discomfort with the pressures of commercial success. Over time, her music took a dramatic shift, shedding bubblegum hooks in favor of alternative R&B, neo-soul, and even punk rock influences. Songs like Wait a Minute and Transparent Soul marked her reinvention, showcasing an artist more interested in self-expression than chart positions. Though these tracks earned her a loyal niche following, they didn't replicate the viral success of her debut, and that was by design. Willow wasn't chasing the fame machine. She was dismantling it and rebuilding her image on her own terms. Her career arc reflects an artist who consciously stepped off the mainstream path. While many still remember her for that first whirlwind hit, Willow's true identity lies in her artistic rebellion, a Gen Z creator more interested in evolution than applause. D4L. In 2005, you couldn't escape Laffy Taffy. The Atlanta-based group D4L turned a candy-flavored hook and minimalist beat into a chart-topping anthem that defined Southern snap music. The track hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, and for a few months, D4L had dance floors buzzing and critics scratching their heads. Led by Shawty Lo, the group's style was playful, stripped down, and undeniably catchy. But that simplicity became their double-edged sword. While Laffy Taffy was a cultural moment, many dismissed it as novelty, a ringtone hit in the era when ringtone sales drove Billboard rankings. Their debut album Down for Life failed to produce another song with equal impact, and questions about their staying power quickly followed. Internal group tensions, lackluster follow-ups, and the evolving Southern rap scene pushed D4L out of the mainstream. By the time artists like T.I. and Jeezy were shaping Atlanta's sound with a harder edge, D4L's lighter, more humorous approach felt out of step. Tragedy struck when Shawty Lo, the group's founder and breakout solo artist, died in a car accident in 2016. His death closed the chapter on any real comeback, turning D4L into a time capsule of mid-2000s party culture. Though often labeled a one-hit wonder, D4L's influence on Atlanta's sonic evolution is quietly enduring. Their success opened doors for playful, less traditional Southern rap, and Laffy Taffy still sneaks into nostalgic playlists, reminding us of a moment when fun ruled the airwaves. Mims. In 2007, Mims delivered a bold proclamation with "This Is Why I'm Hot," a minimalist anthem built on confidence, swagger, and a beat that seemed to dare you not to nod along. The track shot to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming a defining hit of the ringtone rap era. Mims, born Sean Mims, had crafted a song that wasn't just catchy, it became a cultural catchphrase. But behind the swagger was a ticking clock. The success of "This Is Why I'm Hot" came so fast and so big that it left little room for artistic development. His debut album, Music Is My Savior, was met with lukewarm reviews. Critics argued that outside of the hit single, the record lacked substance or staying power. Follow-up singles like This found moderate success, but none came close to replicating the scale of his breakout. Mims struggled to escape the one-hit wonder label. He later revealed frustrations with the music industry and the pressures of delivering another viral success. As hip-hop trends evolved toward melodic rap and trap, Mims' straightforward style began to feel dated. By the 2010s, he had largely stepped away from the spotlight, quietly releasing music and exploring tech ventures. Despite the fade from public consciousness, "This Is Why I'm Hot" still finds life on throwback playlists. It's a reminder of a moment when simplicity and swagger could rule the charts, and of the artist who briefly held the crown. Jaquan. In 2004, Tipsy took over clubs, radio, and teenage house parties like wildfire. Jaquan, just 17 at the time, seemed destined for hip-hop's A-list. With a raspy delivery and an irresistible hook, the St. Louis rapper turned a casual party anthem into a multi-platinum single and instant cultural staple. His debut album, Hood Hop, rode the wave of that success, cementing him as one of the genre's freshest new voices. But when the party ended, the silence was deafening. Follow-up singles like You and Me and Hood Hop 2 failed to chart, and Jaquan found himself drifting from the mainstream. Rumors circulated about label conflicts and financial mismanagement. His name gradually faded from headlines, until a bizarre twist in 2010, when his label publicly declared him missing. He later resurfaced, stating he had simply stepped away from the spotlight. Still, the incident added to the mythos surrounding his sudden disappearance. Unlike many of his peers, Jaquan didn't crash out through controversy. He simply became a question mark, a former teen star whose massive debut couldn't be replicated. Over the years, he released music independently and maintained a modest online presence, but the momentum of Tipsy was never regained. For a generation, Tipsy remains a throwback classic, a snapshot of youthful rebellion on a Friday night. Jaquan's story is a reminder that in hip-hop, timing is everything, and sometimes, one song is all it takes to be remembered forever. Chingy. In the early 2000s, Chingy was everywhere, or more specifically, he was right there. The St. Louis rapper burst onto the scene in 2003 with a southern twang, slick hooks, and club-ready beats that helped define the mid-2000s hip-hop sound. Right There was a breakout smash, followed quickly by hits like One Call Away and Holiday Inn, making him a staple on BET and MTV. Backed initially by Ludacris disturbing the Peace label, Chingy's debut album Jackpot went platinum and positioned him as a rising star. But fame can sour quickly. Chingy's fallout with Ludacris led to a split from the label, and subsequent projects lacked the promotional push that fueled his early success. While albums like Powerballin' and Hoodstar produced moderate hits, the mainstream momentum was already slipping. A damaging rumor alleging a scandalous relationship, which he later denied, further complicated his public image, and disputes over royalties added more friction. By the 2010s, Chingy had faded from the charts, though he continued to tour and release music independently. He even explored spirituality and briefly stepped into politics, but his commercial music career never fully rebounded. Still, for a few vibrant years, Chingy's sound defined a moment in hip-hop when fun, flotation, and flashy videos ruled the airwaves. Right There remains a nostalgic favorite, a reminder of a time when radio was all about catchy hooks, and Chingy had more than a few. Young Jock. When Young Jock dropped It's Goin' Down in 2006, he wasn't just delivering a hit, he he was dropping a Southern anthem that would echo through clubs for years. With its infectious beat and laid-back flow, the song captured the swagger of Atlanta's snap era. His debut album, New Jock City, quickly went gold, and for a moment, Jock was at the forefront of a new wave of Southern rap. Grammy nominations and crossover success followed, marking him as more than just a regional act. But rap's landscape shifted fast. His sophomore album failed to make a similar impact, and changing tastes in hip-hop, favoring auto-tune melodies and trap production, left Jock's style feeling dated. Behind the scenes, label issues with Bad Boy South stifled momentum. Legal troubles and public feuds didn't help, and gradually, his music output slowed. Yet, unlike many who vanished entirely, young Jock found a new lane. He transitioned to reality television, becoming a recurring figure on Love and Hip Hop, Atlanta, where his personality, humorous, unfiltered, self-deprecating, earned him a second fan base. Music took a back seat, but visibility remained. Though his chart-topping days are long gone, It's Goin' Down remains a timeless party track, and Jock's ability to stay culturally relevant through reinvention has kept his name in rotation. He didn't vanish, he adapted, proving that for some, longevity looks a little different in the spotlight. Lil Flip. Hailing from Houston's Cloverland neighborhood, Lil Flip rode the chopped and screwed wave to national attention in the early 2000s. His mixtape grind and freestyle reputation earned him local acclaim, but it was singles like The Way We Ball and especially Game Over, Flip, that propelled him into the mainstream. His sophomore album, You Gotta Feel Me, 2004, went platinum, and Flip quickly became one of the faces of Southern hip-hop's takeover. But success came with static. His public feud with fellow Southern rapper T.I. turned into a lyrical and physical battle that fractured fanbases and overshadowed Flip's music. While he continued to release albums and mixtapes, the commercial fire began to flicker. Critics noted a lack of evolution in his sound, and major label backing started to wane. Meanwhile, Houston sound evolved with artists like Paul Wall and Chamillionaire pushing in different directions, and Flip struggled to stay centered in a scene he helped popularize. Legal disputes and label conflicts further stalled his momentum, and by the late 2000s, he had mostly retreated to independent releases. To his credit, Lil Flip never stopped working. He released music steadily through underground channels and maintained a loyal core fan base in Texas. Still, his national profile faded, the mainstream moved on, even if Flip didn't. His name may not ring as loudly as it once did, but Game Over remains a nostalgic snapshot of Southern hip-hop's loudest, flashiest moment. T-Pain. At one point, T-Pain wasn't just popular, he was the sound of pop and hip-hop. Bursting onto the scene in 2005 with I'm Sprung and I'm in Love with a Stripper, he revolutionized music production with his signature auto-tune vocals. For the next several years, his influence was inescapable. From solo hits like Buy You a Drink to chart-topping features with Kanye West, Flo Rida, and Chris Brown, T-Pain's voice, robotic yet soulful, became the sonic backdrop of a generation. But mass success brought backlash. Critics accused him of ruining music, and peers began to parody the very style he had popularized. The industry soon shifted to more melodic, trap-infused sounds, and the saturation of auto-tune, once T-Pain's playground, became a punchline. By the early 2010s, his presence on the charts had all but vanished. What followed was a period of quiet reinvention. In interviews, T-Pain spoke candidly about depression, financial strain, and the toll that criticism took on his creativity. But then came a twist. In 2014, he released a Tiny Desk concert, performing stripped-down, auto-tune-free versions of his hits. The result? Viral acclaim and respect. In recent years, T-Pain has re-emerged as a respected artist, Twitch streamer, and voice for resilience. His journey from pioneer to punchline and back to beloved figure proves that talent, real talent, doesn't fade. It just waits for the noise to clear. Ja Rule. At the turn of the 2000s, Ja Rule wasn't just a chart presence, he was a dominant force. With gravel-tone delivery and a knack for infectious hooks, he blurred the line between rap and R&B, churning out hits like Always on Time, Livin' It Up, and Mesmerize. His collaborations with Ashanti and Jennifer Lopez became staples of radio and MTV, giving him a run of platinum albums and crossover appeal rarely seen in hip-hop. But dominance invites challengers, and 50 Cent came swinging. Their now infamous feud, fueled by diss tracks and street rumors, permanently altered Ja Rule's public image. Once seen as a romantic tough guy, he was rebranded as soft, a narrative that stuck. As G-Unit rose, Ja Rule's influence declined. His label, Murder Incorporated, was embroiled in federal investigations, further clouding his momentum. By the late 2000s, Ja Rule had all but disappeared from the charts. Legal issues followed, including a prison sentence for tax evasion and weapons charges. A brief comeback attempt in the 2010s fizzled, but his name resurfaced in 2017, not for music, but as the face of the disastrous Fyre Festival, a failed luxury event turned viral scandal. Despite all this, his early catalog remains iconic. Ja Rule's fall wasn't gradual, it was a cultural shift, accelerated by industry politics and one of the most brutal takedowns in rap history. Still, for a time, he ruled the charts with undeniable charisma and unforgettable hooks. Foxy Brown. In the mid-1990s, Foxy Brown arrived with a voice that couldn't be ignored, bold, unapologetic, and drenched in Brooklyn swagger. At just 17, she held her own on tracks with Jay-Z and Nas, proving that a young woman could spit bars as viciously and confidently as any man in the game. Her 1996 debut, Il Na Na, was a commercial success, pushing her into the elite ranks of female MCs alongside Lil' Kim and Missy Elliott. But Foxy's career was as volatile as it was promising. Despite further albums, China Doll, Broken Silence, her consistency was undercut by public feuds, label disputes, and a growing reputation for being difficult to work with. Legal troubles began stacking up, assault charges, probation violations, and each controversy pushed her further from the music and deeper into tabloid territory. Behind the scenes, Foxy also battled a serious hearing loss condition that temporarily derailed her ability to record and perform. While she eventually regained some of her hearing, the momentum she'd built in the late 90s had all but vanished. Sporadic features and attempts at comebacks followed, but none gained real traction. Foxy Brown didn't fade quietly, her career unraveled loudly, with talent often overshadowed by turmoil. Still, her impact on female rap is undeniable. She was fearless, fashionable, and lyrically sharp in an era that demanded all three. For those who remember her prime, Foxy remains a symbol of raw potential, both fulfilled and tragically interrupted. Kia. In 2002, Kia delivered one of the most controversial and memorable anthems of the decade with My Neck, My Back, Lick It. The track was explicit, raw, and unapologetically female-fronted at a time when hip-hop rarely handed women the mic for such bold self-expression. It became a club staple, a feminist lightning rod, and a viral sensation years before viral was even a thing. Whether loved or loathed, the song made an impression, and Kia became a name nobody could ignore. But the spotlight didn't last. Despite the breakout success of her debut single, Kia struggled to replicate its reach. Follow-up tracks failed to chart, and albums were met with limited commercial attention. Instead of evolving musically, she became known for her outspoken personality and frequent feuds, publicly criticizing artists like Trina, Beyoncé, and Nicki Minaj. While these rants earned her attention, they also branded her as a provocateur rather than a serious contender in hip-hop. To her credit, Kia never stopped working. She continued releasing independent music and launched a web series, using the internet as a platform for unfiltered commentary. Still, her musical identity remained tethered to a single hit. My Neck, My Back has outlived its moment, surfacing in films, parodies, and nostalgic playlists. As for Kia, she carved out her own space, not always polished, not always embraced by the mainstream, but undeniably hers. A one-hit wonder, perhaps, but never one to go quietly. Man. In 2011, Man briefly captured the West Coast summer vibe with Buzzin', a feel-good anthem that rode a slick beat and carefree hook into the Billboard charts. A remix featuring 50 Cent only boosted the song's reach, helping it gain traction in clubs and on urban radio. With his youth, charisma, and radio-friendly delivery, Man seemed like a new voice in the post-hi-fi wave of Los Angeles hip-hop. But lightning didn't strike twice. Despite the exposure, Man's follow-up singles failed to make significant waves. His debut album Man's World never materialized into a commercial breakthrough, and label support began to wane. His image, clean-cut, upbeat, and uncontroversial, struggled to stand out in a rap landscape dominated by bolder personalities and grittier narratives. By the mid-2010s, Man had quietly stepped away from the mainstream. He stayed active on social media, released mixtapes and indie projects, and cultivated a modest fanbase, but the broader industry had moved on. He remained musically consistent, but without another hit, his window of national relevance slowly closed. Unlike some artists whose careers crash in scandal or controversy, Man's story is one of quiet fading. Buzzin' remains his calling card, a smooth, summery slice of early 2010s pop rap that still makes its way onto throwback playlists. For a moment, he had the momentum and the look of a long-term star. Instead, he became one of many artists who caught a wave, but couldn't ride it to shore. Soulja Boy Tell 'Em. In 2007, Soulja Boy Tell 'Em didn't just release a hit, he launched a digital revolution. Crank That, Soulja Boy wasn't just a chart topper, it was a cultural explosion. With its simple dance, DIY music video, and catchy hook, the track turned a teenager from Atlanta into an internet-era pioneer. Long before TikTok or viral trends became the norm, Soulja Boy proved that an artist could bypass traditional industry gatekeepers and build an empire from a bedroom computer. At just 17, he topped the Billboard Hot 100 and earned a Grammy nomination, with his debut album SouljaBoyTellEm.com going platinum. But as quickly as he rose, so did the criticism. Detractors dismissed his music as simplistic, his lyrics as juvenile, and his success as a fluke. His style, fun, brash, and hook-driven, became overexposed, and by the early 2010s, the wave had started to recede. Rather than disappear, Soulja Boy adapted. He stayed online, leaned into his controversial persona, and made headlines for outlandish statements and feuds, from claiming to have invented modern rap trends to beefs with Drake and Tyga. His antics often eclipsed his music, but they kept his name in circulation. In recent years, he's pivoted again, as a Twitch streamer, entrepreneur, and nostalgia act. Crank That still resonates on dance floors and in internet culture, solidifying his role as a digital trailblazer. Soulja Boy didn't vanish, he evolved. And whether loved or mocked, he was always one step ahead of the curve. What do you think about the rise and fall of these iconic artists? Do you think they'll make a comeback or stay legends of the past? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into their careers, don't forget to hit the like button and share your opinions. And for more stories like this, be sure to subscribe to the Legends of Black Excellence channel. Your support means everything to us.